The disappearance of the men aboard the Sarah Joe is one of those mysteries that seems to have it all. A treacherous storm, a desperate search, an eventual recovery. What we know today is only the tip of what may be a much larger iceberg. This is the first episode of our series devoted to examining the many unsolved mysteries of the sea. Paradise can sometimes feel like a cliché. Often the reality is messy, complicated, and occasionally even boring. But in the case of Maui, Hawaii, the cliché is justified. With some of the best surfing and clearest waters on Earth, it's a little surprise that the valley is considered a paradise. In the early 1970s, 5 young men made it their home. They were all avid fishermen and watermen known collectively as the Ocean Riders. Their individual names were Scott Mormon, Benjamin Kalama, Ralph Maleakini, Patrick Wassner, and Peter Honcho. Like most people who lived there, they knew every inch of the ocean around the island. They were masters of reading the signs and predicting the patterns of the tides and currents, and they respected the power of the sea like men who live their lives by its whims often do. But that respect wouldn't be enough when it counted the most. By the late 1970s, Scott Mormon had been working for the local Hawaiian Electric Light Company for almost a decade. His co-workers remember him fondly as a cheerful man with a ready smile. He was particularly excited in the weeks leading up to February 11th, 1979. Scott had just completed an extensive repair job on his 25-foot Boston Whaler boat, the Sarah Joe. Now he was eager to put it to the test and go deep-sea fishing. On the morning of February 11th, Scott dropped by his friend Ralph Molina's house to pick him up. Together, they motored to Hana Harbor to meet the rest of the Ocean Riders. At the dock, they met up with Patrick Wassner, who was going along for the ride. The 3 men checked in with the harbor master before setting off into the open ocean. Sometime later, the men spotted another Boston Whaler, operated by Peter Honcho and Benjamin Kalama. The 2 boats decided to team up for the day and head out deeper into the Pacific. Together, they motored over 30 miles off the coast of Maui, towards the mouths of the Great Pacific. The 8 men aboard the 2 Boston Whalers spent the day fishing and joking around. None of them worked, but all of them understood the importance of being careful at sea. In fact, the group was well known for helping other boats in distress. But it was on until they began to make their way back to shore that things took a turn. At around 4:30 p.m., the wind picked up and the skies darkened dramatically. The men struggled to get back to the safety of the harbor, but now the sea was a churning mass of white caps and frothing waves. The wind whipped across the surface, creating near hurricane conditions. Waves over 20 feet high began to slam into the boats. Even the men's years of experience couldn't overcome the sudden squall. The boats were tossed about like toys in a bathtub. People were thrown into the raging water. Others clung to the sinking vessels, desperately trying to stay afloat. All the while, the wind screamed across the waves, carrying their terrified shouts out to sea. The men fought against the elements for several hours, but at some point, the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving them in total darkness. The storm raged on, and one by one, the men lost their grip on life. Either they were pulled down by the insatiable waves, or exhausted themselves with futile attempts to stay upright. Of the 8 men who set out that day, only 2 would ever be seen again. One of them was Peter Honcho, who washed ashore in Keakakapu Beach 6 days later, on February 17th. He was unconscious and without a stitch of clothing on his body. When he woke, found himself in a hospital bed with doctors hovering over him. Peter was confused and scared. He asked about his friends, about the others. The doctors looked at each other sadly and delivered the news that he dreaded hearing. The other men were gone. Those who had found him had already held a memorial service. Over the next few days, the U.S. Coast Guard conducted an extensive search, combing through 73,000 square miles of ocean. That's an area nearly the size of England. Despite dropping everything, they came up empty. After 5 long days of searching, they reluctantly called off the operation and labeled the incident a mass disappearance. As for Peter, he was left with a mystery of his own. He had no memory of what happened after the first few hours of the storm. It was as though something had struck him and wiped his mind clean. During the investigation, Peter's wife told police that her husband was unusually secretive, and she could never really get him to talk about his work with the Coast Guard. Perhaps that was why they had no answers. Maybe Peter was supposed to be somewhere else that day and only decided to join the others at the last minute. But if so, why? A few months later, Peter succumbed to his injuries. He died of hypothermia, pneumonia, and exposure. Before that, however, he wrote a letter to his brother explaining what he remembered of that fateful voyage. According to Peter, the men had been caught in a freak storm. He mentioned nothing about the days leading up to the disaster, nor did he explain why he was on the boat that day instead of another. His death effectively ended the investigation. But the families of the missing men refused to let the case go. For the next decade, they pressured the authorities to resume the search, even offering to pay for it themselves. Unfortunately, it was a fruitless effort. The men were officially declared dead, and the only lead was a string of unanswered questions. Then, in the summer of 1989, a breakthrough. Marine biologist John Nathan was on a mission to discover the extent of nuclear contamination around the Marshall Islands. Between June and August, he and his team surveyed over 40 different locations, collecting samples of fish, coral, and water. When they reached the uninhabited atoll of Bakako, they found something odd. The remnants of a Boston whaler half buried in the sand. John brushed off the debris and discovered the registration number. It matched the Sarah Joe. With a mixture of excitement and dread, John radioed the Marshall Islands government for help. Within a few hours, they confirmed his suspicions. The boat had been reported missing almost a decade earlier. John wasn't done. He followed the tracks left by the boat inland, until he reached a shallow grave beneath a grove of trees. Inside, he found a human skeleton wearing what appeared to be swimming trunks. Later, dental records confirmed the grim truth. The bones belonged to Scott Mormon, one of the men aboard the Sarah Joe. In the weeks following the discovery, John returned to Bakachika several times to try and locate the rest of the men. But despite scouring the area for weeks, he found nothing. He also discovered something else that was even more troubling. The entire group had been dead for less than 2 days when they shipwrecked. This raised a lot of questions, not least of which was where were the bodies buried. The discovery of the skeletons led to a flurry of activity. Media descended on the small island chain, and the families of the missing men felt a renewed sense of hope. Just one problem. However, the United States had strict laws prohibiting the removal of human remains from federal land. It was up to the Interior Department to decide whether the remains would be exhumed. In the end, they chose not to, citing the cost as too prohibitive. Instead, they placed a permanent marker at the site of the grave, and that's where the story should have ended. For over 10 years, Scott's family had clung to the hope that he and his friends would be found alive. While those hopes were ultimately dashed, they had at least been given the chance to lay their loved ones to rest. Instead, they were forced to watch as nature reclaimed Scott's body, turning a grave into a shallow depression in the sand. As for the other men, the sea still holds their secrets close. Was the crash really an accident? What caused the men to be thrown into the water? Where are the rest of the bodies? These are questions that may never receive satisfactory answers. All we can say with certainty is that the disappearance of the men aboard the Sarah Joe is one of the greatest mysteries ever to befall the ocean. And if we want to understand the sea, we must first learn how to listen to its stories, even if the truths they hold are too terrible to contemplate. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Do you have a story of a maritime mystery that has never been solved? Please share it with us in the comments. A mystery that defied logic. For 10 years, the fate of the Sarah Joe and her 5-man crew remained unknown. Another unsolved maritime mystery added to the countless others that had vanished into the endless expanse of the ocean. Then, as if scripted in a Hollywood thriller, the boat turned up 2,000 miles away, offering a glimmer of hope that the mystery was about to unravel. But the reappearance of the Sarah Joe and the grave of Scott Mormon didn't end the mystery. It began a new, more baffling one. How did the boat get there, and what happened to the other 4 men? Welcome back, everyone, to this channel. Join me as we delve into some of the most unbelievable mysteries that have ever been solved. From eerie discoveries to spin-chilling tales, we bring you the most gripping stories that will leave you questioning reality. Now let's begin. The year is 2004, and the drama unfolds in the heart of the Pacific Ocean. The radio crackles with urgency as the Coast Guard receives a distress call from the Sarah Joe. The vessel is caught in the grip of a violent storm, and things don't look good. But just when it seems like the worst has happened, a glimmer of hope emerges. The Coast Guard manages to establish contact with one of the crew members, who assures them that the situation is under control. Rescue operations are immediately launched. But as the hours drag on, a sense of foreboding settles in. The winds continue to howl, and the waves crash relentlessly against the shore. And when the sun rises the next morning, it reveals a grim reality. The Sarajevo is nowhere to be found, leaving behind a haunting question. Where are the men in the boat? For weeks, the authorities scoured the ocean searching for any trace of the missing vessel. But their efforts seemed futile as days turned into months, and the case grew colder. Hope began to dwindle, leading many to believe that the Sarajevo and its crew had become another tragic footnote in the annals of maritime disasters. But the story doesn't end there. Fast forward 10 years, and a remote South Pacific island holds a secret that will change everything. The discovery of the Sarajevo and a grave, bearing the name Scott Mormon, reopens old wounds and raises more questions than it answers. How did the boat make that incredible journey? Who is responsible for burying Mr. Mormon? And why? These questions become the obsession of those seeking answers, diving deep into the enigma that surrounds the reappearance of the sailboat. But as investigations intensify, it becomes clear that the path to unraveling the truth is fraught with dead ends and red herrings. Each new clue only serves to deepen the mystery, leaving investigators on the edge of their seats, wondering what secrets the island is hiding. The first puzzle is the journey itself. Marine experts are baffled. While not impossible, it's highly improbable for a small, unguided boat to travel over 2,000 miles and land on that specific, tiny atoll. The odds are astronomical. The boat should have been lost in the vastness of the Pacific, but the boat's journey is nothing compared to the mystery of the grave. The burial itself is a puzzle. A shallow grave was dug, the body was laid to rest, and a cross was placed to mark the spot. The remains showed no signs of trauma or foul play. Scott Mormon likely died of starvation or exposure. This leaves investigators with a few deeply unsettling theories. Theory 1. The lone survivor. In this scenario, at least 2 of the men survived the storm and the impossibly long drift, finally washing ashore on the atoll. Scott Mormon eventually died, and his friend, the last survivor, gave him a final, respectful burial. This explains the grave perfectly, but it opens a new, terrible question. What happened to the man who built it? Did he die later, his body lost to the island, or was he rescued by a passing ship that was never identified? Theory 2. Foreign vessel. The waters between Hawaii and the Marshall Islands are frequented by illegal fishing boats. It's possible the 5 men were rescued from their damaged boat, only to find themselves on a vessel that didn't want any witnesses. A conflict could have occurred, resulting in their deaths. Years later, perhaps riddled with guilt, a crewman could have dumped the Sarajevo and buried one body near the atoll to throw off investigators. Theory 3. The darkest end. This theory suggests that most, if not all, of the 5 men made it to the atoll alive. But a deserted island is not a paradise. Faced with starvation, dehydration, and despair, they perished one by one, until a single man was left. He buried his last remaining friend before succumbing to his own fate, his body lost to the jungle or the sea, leaving behind only that one lonely grave. In the end, all we have are theories. The trail has long since gone cold. The families of the 4 other men will likely never know what happened to their loved ones. Still, the theories are fascinating, aren't they? But which one do you think is the most likely? Let us know in the comments below. Now, whether you prefer the thrilling pursuit of pirates, the captivating tales of ancient civilizations, or the perplexing mysteries of the human mind, our videos have something for everyone. Speaking of which, while you ponder the fate of the Sarajevo's remaining crew, allow me to share another intriguing tale with you. This next story is sure to captivate your imagination and leave you on the edge of your seat. Brace yourself for the mystery of the lost pirates' city. Imagine stumbling upon a hidden metropolis, a secret city swallowed by time and concealed from modern eyes. Well, that's exactly what happened in Ecuador. In 2013, a group of archaeologists made an astonishing discovery that sent ripples of excitement through the world of history. What they found was beyond anything they had imagined. A tangible link to a bygone era that challenged everything they knew about ancient civilizations. As you listen to this tale, picture the thrill of exploration, the weight of historical significance, and the race against time to preserve these invaluable relics of the past. It's a journey through the annals of history that will leave you in awe. Before we dive into the details of this incredible discovery, let's take a moment to explore the world of piracy. These daring outlaws roamed the seas, preying on unsuspecting ships and amassing fortunes through their daring exploits. Piracy was not just about plunder and adventure. It was a way of life, a rebellion against societal norms and a means of survival in a ruthless world. Now let's shift our attention to the heart of the matter, the discovery of the lost pirate city. Picturetes, a nondescript area in Ecuador, became the focal point of an archaeological investigation led by the renowned expert, Dr. Margarita Vaca. Intuition told her that beneath the surface lay secrets waiting to be unearthed. Armed with determination and scientific tools, she and her team embarked on a mission to uncover the hidden past. As they delved deeper into the layers of time, the true nature of the site was revealed. The remnants of a great city, one that had been lost for centuries, emerged before their astonished eyes. Among the most intriguing artifacts discovered were ceramic fragments adorned with unique motifs. These shards of pottery whispered tales of a bygone era, offering clues to the city's identity and purpose. But the enigma deepened with the presence of foreign objects, items that hinted at the city's connection to the wider world. These enigmatic objects posed a series of questions that transcended the realm of archaeology. Who were the inhabitants of this hidden city? What was their way of life, and how did they interact with the outside world? The discovery shook the foundations of historical knowledge. It forced scholars to re-examine long-held beliefs and embrace the possibility of rewriting history. Yet as the world marveled at this extraordinary find, a pressing question loomed. How can we preserve this treasure for future generations? Conservation efforts became a race against time, striving to protect the fragile remnants of the past from the relentless march of progress. And now we come to the present day. The echo of that fateful day in 2013 reverberates through the corridors of history. The lost pirate city stands as a testament to the rich tapestry of our past, reminding us of the legacies that shape our world. If you're as captivated by this tale as I am, then don't forget to show your support. Your engagement fuels our journey through time, and if you'd like to embark on more adventures with us, then hit that subscribe button. As we conclude our journey today, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep seeking answers. The world is brimming with mysteries waiting to be unraveled. So go forth, be curious, and never stop uncovering the secrets that make our world so fascinating.